Hey y'all,
What's going on, guys?
I'm Jay,
And I'm Chris the Bird Nerd.
and we
We
are
are
the
the
Bird
Bird
Brain.
Brains. Hey, that sounded really good on my end. So,
Totally off of my end. What did Aladdin say the other day that we were 1 for 42?
yeah, I feel good about this. I mean, at least
Yeah,
if it worked on my end, I think we'll be good. So,
yeah, we need a
we'll have to figure it
professional
out.
to make us sound right.
Oh, it's
Um,
terrible.
yeah, all right, it is late. Let's see
Mm.
here. This is a good episode though. I get questions about this a lot. What are we going to talk about today, Chris?
Yeah, we like you said, we've gotten quite a few questions, but we want to look at or discuss um, building and designing aviaries. And it could be an outdoor aviary. It could even be, something within your house as well. I know a lot of people that have designed decent sized flights inside of their house. But we want to kind of approach that, discuss that, what goes into that as far as designing and building an aviary, the right tools, resources, design plans, etc. Just make sure we cover all that. If you guys are interested in building an aviary, this is the episode for you.
The Bird Brains Podcast with Chris and Jay. The Bird Brains Podcast with Chris and Jay. The Bird Brains Podcast with Chris and Jay. Bird Brains, Bird Brains. The Bird Brains Podcast with Chris and Jay. The Bird Brains Podcast with Chris and Jay. The Bird Brains Podcast with Chris and Jay. Bird Brains, Bird
Before we
Brains.
get to this aviary building, want to mention our sponsor, newzealand.com, spelled like New Zealand, but ZOO instead of ZEW. Or no, ZEA. Yeah, instead of ZEA.
Yeah,
Sorry, I'm not from New Zealand. Heard here it's lovely. Would love to visit.
I would love to
Einstein's
go
from
there.
there. Not really. He's from like north of there. But um, and also to be clear, if anyone's trying to like bust me for smuggling or something, Einstein's from Florida. He was born in Florida. He's a closed banded bird. I have his birth certificate. But um, yeah, use code BirdBrains, 10% off. They've got
Yep,
seed, they've got toys, they've got supplies.
cages.
We are working on getting more of all those things, and we sent them a list last week of a whole bunch of Finch specific stuff we're working on getting on the website.
Yep,
So hang tight. We hear you. We know you're looking for this stuff. We want you to have it. We want to get it to you. We're working on figuring all that out. It's not as easy
right.
as it sounds.
And and go check out the perch boxes that they have available currently. We are working on a Bird Brains box that we can make available to you guys, but I've been looking at some of the designs and boxes that they have, the small, medium, large, that's tailored to different species of birds. They're actually pretty cool looking, and go in, subscribe to that, get some of those boxes going, those perch boxes, and once the Bird Brains box becomes available, we'll absolutely be
Mhm.
um, touting that up here in our podcast videos and making sure you guys are aware of that so they become available to you as well, and something that we're really excited about, something come down the pipeline. So
Great thing to give is like a holiday gift of any kind. Flag Day. Big fan of Flag Day. Great Flag Day gift. That's a Reno 911 inside joke for those of you to get it. But if you got a bird person in your life, or even heck, if you've got a bird in your life that you love, great gift for them. You get a new box every month with different stuff in it, different treats, all kinds of cool stuff. So definitely go over there to check it out. And, big thank you to them for helping us out.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys.
Mhm. All right. Aviary construction. Um, Probably going to be an accidentally controversial episode in some ways.
Yep, you're probably right.
Anytime we talk about things like cage size, we always get a couple of angry people in the comments. Excuse me, sorry it's late. And then we also get it tends to generate a lot of questions too. So I guess the first way we can divvy this up is indoor versus outdoor. I've built my own cages, both indoor and outdoor, for years and years. My first, dedicated finch cage was something I built. Have you ever had an indoor one that you built, Chris?
I'm trying to think. No, I've just had cages and I've like put different like pre-made cages together to make them bigger, but I haven't actually like built and designed a
Hmm.
cage inside. I know of a few people that have that I've been close to in the past, and they've had some pretty cool designs, but I specifically have not done it. Most of mine have all been outside.
So let's talk about building your own cage in general. So there's a couple of huge advantages to building your own cage. One is you can make something, you can maximize your space. So, like for instance, if you have an area in your house where you have like a dresser or something, then you have a blank space next to it, you can make like an L-shaped cage that has two different bottoms, right? I've done that before. Um, Another huge advantage is it tends to be, especially when it comes to finches, it can be very cost effective compared to
Yes, yes.
having to buy either a really big like metal cage or, and there are some really cool ones online. And if this is the route you go, I'm zero knocking it, but you can buy like aviaries online, like the kinds you see at like the
Uh-huh.
old folks home or your dentist or whatever. And
Yep.
those are great, but those are also like several $1,000s.
Yeah.
And I can build a pretty awesome adequate finch cage for like even in today's dollars, like $100.
Right. And I was going to say, Jay, there's a lot of different styles of just materials that you can use, right? You've got,
Hmm.
like you had mentioned, you've got some of the pre-made ones. Most of those are like a type of metal. You can do, steel, aluminum, which the metal cages I actually really like, just due to a maintenance perspective. They last
Hmm.
longer. You can spray them down with hoses, right? Things like that. They're easier to clean and sanitize, uh, but they're a lot more expensive. So typically, most people go the wood route, which is cheaper and may not last as long. You can paint it and do different maintenance techniques with it so that it extends the life of your aviary and the wood within it. But just those are just a few different materials that you can use. There's also different types of wire that you can put on there. If you're doing finches like what we have, we recommend nothing bigger than a 1/4 inch galvanized steel, because if you have any smaller finch, like most of your wax bills, especially if they fledge any young, they can fit through those. Anything bigger than those 1/4 inch, I've even had
Hmm.
a couple gold breasts that fit half of their body through the 1/4 inch wire before I caught them. They're just teeny tiny birds. So just a few different types of materials that you can use that are available. A lot of the metal and steel materials, you may have to have that specially cut unless you're good at that type of design work. Whereas like the wood materials are easier to work with, and you don't need as many tools to cut them and put them together, things like that. So a few
Yeah, and we
options there.
both have big outdoor aviaries that we built ourselves, and they're both wood and screen. Um,
Hmm.
I've also in the past I've done an inside one that was wood and glass,
Yeah.
and then I built some small metal ones as well. I tend to go the wood route. One, it's very affordable. Two, it's very easy for me to do, and I'm not. If you ever watch my videos and you really look up close, I am anything but a finished carpenter. I am
Yeah.
a very
Same here.
rough carpenter. So
Same here.
um, wood is pretty forgiving of mistakes, and you can kind of sand things and make things fit and smush things and stretch things out. And so I like that. I mean, when you're when so you've we've both built one in the last couple of years because I completely rebuilt mine 2 years ago to correct a lot of mistakes I made. But um, what when you're thinking I'm going to build an aviary, Chris, you've just finished building your
Yeah.
outdoor aviary. What are what were some of the things? So you did wood. What were you thinking about, I guess, when you're in the planning stages?
Yeah. So I drew up several different mock prototypes through paper
Did your
with
homework, you're saying?
yeah, yeah, with precise measurements. Went out and measured the space that I had available. Drew up actually three different designs is what I had. I had a flat top design, I had just like a slanted design, and then I have what I have now is like the A-frame design, or the rooftop, most of your typical rooftops. And reason why I went with the slanted rooftop is because we get heavy winters. My last aviary I just did the flat top. And when it snows really heavy, it puts a lot of weight on your
Mm-hmm.
wire and wood that you have. And I had metal sheeting across there too. And it would start to bow, and I'd have to go up there and take, sweep a lot of the snow off because it gets really heavy, especially if it's wet snow. Yeah, so I drew up several different mock drawings. Had to run it through my wife many times just to get approval. You got to make sure the boss approves, and make sure she's happy and it looks pretty. I went and visited like four different aviaries that I knew of, outdoor aviaries, and their designs, and kind of took bits and pieces from what I liked and didn't like in theirs. I'm the same as Jay. I am anything but an experienced carpenter. I mean, it was definitely a DIY project,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a couple people come and quote me for some outdoor aviaries. I actually wanted to build an aluminum outdoor aviary because I wanted that kind of like light, sleek look, and way too expensive. Absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't make that work. And so if you have that available, that's the route you want to go. That's cool. Yeah, do it. I think they look awesome, but that wasn't in the cards for me. So, like Jay, we went with the wood style, and that's just cheaper. So yeah, a lot of different drawings, setup plans, measured, remeasured the area before I even bought anything, and went and visited the different aviaries, wrote down what I liked, what I disliked, and then at that time where I felt like I was good, kind of ran the plans through my wife and a couple other people that were more experienced carpenters, and kind of got the green light of, yeah, this looks good and I think this will work. And then that's when I went and started buying the material and starting it.
Well, and
How about
I
you, Jay?
didn't mention it earlier, but another great thing about wood is like when I'm mounting nest boxes or if I'm changing something, it doesn't bother me to cut the cut a section out or drill a hole through something. It's
Uh-huh.
much easier for me mentally to do that.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, I mean, it for me, I think you kind of covered all that. The indoors, I keep it pretty simple. If I was going to build an indoor cage again, I think I'd build it the same way. I pretty much just use 1x2s.
Yeah.
Um, the key there, hard to find at hardware stores or Home Depot or wherever you end up going. They usually have like, like a pallet of it. And 1x2s are kind of junk wood. And so a lot of them will have like big, shards out of them, or they'll be really curved. So if you ever see me at Home Depot and I'm holding up pieces of wood to check if they're plumb, that's what I'm doing.
Yep.
Um, and then I just use like mosquito screen, a staple gun, and screws, and pretty quickly you've got a decent bird cage. And one of the downsides, again, I'm not a finished carpenter, so like I've tried it before, but I could never perfect the pull-out drawer
Yeah.
like you get when you buy a bird cage. So it might make cleaning a little bit harder. The best idea I came up with was I had one cage where I didn't have a pull-out drawer at all, but I did have the bottom flap
Mm.
opened about 8 inches, so I could reach in there and get stuff out and put stuff in without the birds getting loose.
Yeah.
Um, lot of trial and error, getting doors to work and open the right way and things like that. A lot of dumb mistakes. If you go, like I said, if you looked at my aviary up close, you'd see, you know, old drill holes where, oh, that's not where I wanted that to be, and things like that. But um, the big things I thought about were holding up to weather and
Yeah.
then keeping birds in and pests out. So
Right.
double doors are key. And what we mean by that, and there's a million ways to do it. I'll first explain kind of the principle and then I'll explain how I do it specifically in the aviary. But the idea is that you have to open a door, shut that door, and then open another door before you get to birds. And so that way, if you forget or you have a toddler open a door, or who knows, those birds are not going to be loose and gone forever. So a lot of people, and you'll see it, they'll just have like a phone booth on the side of the aviary, and it's just kind of enough for one person to come in, shut the door, and then open the other door.
Yep.
That's perfectly fine if that's the way you do it. That's great. Double doors, you got to have them. You don't necessarily need that indoors because the door to the room or wherever your house is the double
Right.
door. But outdoors, you need that. The way I do it is I have a shed that the bird cage is attached to, and then what used to be the other exit of the shed is the entrance to the aviary. So those are my two doors, and then there's also all the other cages in there. That their door is the first door, and then the shed door is the second door.
Nice.
Um, and then I put a kick plate on that door that goes all the way to the ground and actually drags on the concrete, and that way birds can't fit under. And it's also hard to open for my kids, and then it also makes a big noise. So if my kids do surprise me while I'm in the middle of cleaning the bird cage or something, I can't miss that that door got opened because it's very, very loud. Um, then the other big things I think about pest control, I have two main things that I, regardless of how the size or the specifics of my aviary, I would always do these things. So one is I have double metal mesh. So I use 2x4s in the construction of mine. I think you're 4x4s, right,
Yep.
Chris?
I'm 4x4. Yep.
Same idea though. So I have one layer of the screen, the metal, it's called hardware cloth, by the hardware stores, but it's metal 1/4 inch chicken wire screen,
Yep.
galvanized steel. And I put one on the outside, and then I have the 2x4 as kind of the meat of a sandwich, and then I have another set of screen on the inside. And why I do that is if you're a raccoon or a snake or something, or even a bird of prey, if you go on the outside of my aviary, you can't get all the way through to, even if a bird was on the end of a perch right on the other side, there's still a couple inch gap there between outside and the birds. And then the other thing I did is at the bottom where rats and mice and things could get in, I actually, it's buried, but I take the screen out underground a couple feet. So even if a bird or a rodent tries to dig under, they get stopped. And then on top of that, I've also, anywhere where I was extra worried, I've also put concrete.
Yeah.
So those to me are critical things you got to have if you're going to build, especially an outdoor aviary. You've got to be able to, rodent proof it. And they're still going to find ways to get in. Ask me how I know. I'm in
Yeah.
a years long battle, but those key things, knock on wood, but I haven't lost a bird to a bird of prey. And if you scroll back through my Instagram, I had an owl try very hard for weeks. I
Yeah.
haven't had any big dangerous predators get in, and it's because of those precautions.
Yeah. And same this year. I actually learning moment for me because I didn't have the double wire on my aviary, and I had a bird of prey. He didn't kill any of my birds, but he actually was able to injure a few of them, especially on their beaks. He'd wait for them to fly up on the wire, and then he'd jump on there, and his claws are long enough to reach through that he would get some of them. So he had bloodied a few of my birds' foreheads before, and then I had to put that second
Mhm.
set of wire on there so that even if he flew up onto the wire, he couldn't reach through and get the birds. And then I did pavers, concrete pavers, as the base of my
Mhm.
aviary, which again, eliminates any rodents from digging up underneath there. I've just got my aviary flush on the pavers, and then I actually have a sealant on the bottom of those in between the wood and the pavers just to seal up any crack that we had. I did have a snake that did fit through my wire earlier this summer. Thankfully, it didn't get any of my birds, and I caught it before we were able to get it out. But you still have those moments where they're going to find a way. Eventually, they're going to find a way. So it's important to go through and just make sure that you're always recalibrating, looking at weak spots, trying to identify
Mhm.
areas that potentially a predator could get in somehow to get your birds. Because eventually sometimes they'll win in the end if you don't continue to prep and re-prep and make sure that you're good throughout the years, winter, summer, fall, spring, all of them. So, Jay, let's talk about designs of aviary. I know we've got a few different designs in the past. I've had a couple designs of aviaries throughout my life. Some of the designs that my dad built, my first aviary I built, this one's my second one. Both of them were pretty different styles of aviaries. So let's hit on that a little bit. What would you recommend as far as styles of aviary and what you could make work for the space that you have available?
Yeah, so the main thing you're going for is you want, and we talked about this before, the biggest aviary you can build for the least amount of birds, right? So if you only have a pair, if you had a 10-foot aviary for a pair, still great. That's fine. Um, but I tend to end up, and I think you do too, in more of like a rectangle shape because I'm going for long flight. And like Torben, who's Tropical Aviary Birds on YouTube and Instagram, he has a 60-meter long aviary. And it's
Wow,
only
that's
it's
awesome.
only like 15 feet wide, but it goes forever. And that's better than a shorter aviary that was a square, if that makes
Yeah,
sense. Um, so that's the first thing I do. Height is not as important. I know yours is taller. My aviary is only 7 feet tall, and I did that. I spent an enormous amount of time before I built my aviary thinking about all the features I wanted. And then after a year, I had missed on so many things that I tore down my aviary and built a new one in the same spot. So,
yeah,
another advantage to wood, I didn't cry too bad throwing a couple $100 worth of wood away, buy thousands of dollars of metal. But,
yeah,
um, so length is the main thing that you're going for. My aviary is actually T-shaped, so my inside portion meets in the middle of my longer outside portion. But again, still just maximizing length of flight over every other variable. And then the second thing I think of, and we've talked about this in past episodes with perches and things like that, but just after the birds, so the birds get number one priority. What's best for them? Right after that is things that make it easier for me. So more cleanable, less maintenance. Like my water systems are a great example. Keeping it dry in there, which if you followed me for a while, is I lose no matter what sometimes because my whole yard floods. But I've redone the roof on my aviary, shoot, 5 times trying to get it right. Started with no roof, then I had a flat roof, same issue as you, except for water. I'm losing my voice, but had big water issues. So then I went to a slant the long way. Well, that didn't move enough water. So then I went to a slant the short way into a gutter, but then the gutter was leaking. So finally now I've got it figured out to where I've got like a big attic space and then a roof that slopes over onto my shed roof and then off into the backyard. But it doesn't, you don't have to be perfect right away, but you do need to chase it, right?
right.
What about, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. I get asked this all the time, and somebody I know recently ran into some issues. As far as substrates, the bottom of the aviary, this is a very common
Yeah,
newbie question. Where are you at with the different substrates?
yeah. So I've had in my lifetime of all the different aviaries, I've had dirt substrate, sand substrate, gravel substrate, and cement substrate. And I'm putting my pavers in the same category as cement.
That's
Very,
cement.
very,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
just easier to place cement. Yeah.
yeah. There's perks, pros and cons to each of those, right? You get your dirt. Pros is it's more natural, right? I think it's more enriching for the birds. If you get seeds that spill down there, spray some water on them. You got sprouts coming out a couple days later. Your birds can dig in it. There's a chance to find more insects. So there's positives there. It can get really muddy and dirty pretty quick if it gets wet, which sometimes is not great for birds.
Hmm.
And I think sand, I would put similar sand's a little bit easier to clean. I just don't really like the look of sand as much in my experience. And I'm going to put gravel similar to that. Gravel, I did gravel in my last aviary, and at first I really liked it. I could just spray it down with, uh, with a hose, kind of spray off the poop and stuff like that. But then it started building up some pretty nasty gunk underneath it, and gravel's hard to move and sift through. I purposely tried not to put any seed and stuff out there because I didn't want that to add to that
Mhm.
layer of mess underneath the rocks. Um, but it still over time builds up. I mean, the birds carry seeds out, they fly and it kicks seed everywhere, even outside into the aviary, things like that. Um, and so when it would rain, it would stink. And so that was something that I really didn't like. And, in Utah, we don't have very wet weather for the most part. We're in the desert. But when it rained or when it snowed and then it's wet, it just was really gross. And I know it wasn't a very good environment for the birds in the long run. So that was a con there. And then now I have cement, and I really went with cement with the basis of easy cleaning. I can just spray it off, and I really like that, which is nice. Keeps it more sanitary, but you don't get that natural look. You don't have the dirt. I did add some live plants to the aviary out there to try and bring some more of that natural look, but you just don't get that right. I let my button quail out there this summer, and it's really fun to watch them, but it would be it would look cooler if they're walking around in dirt, to be honest with you. But so I think that's a con to the cement, but the pros would be it's easier to clean and maintain year over year and last longer. And so that's my experience with the substrates. I don't know. Are there any substrates that I'm missing, Jay, that you would add to that?
Pine shavings, but it's not a good solution. So yeah, I mean, so I've tried dirt, sand, gravel, concrete, um, and yeah, same thing, even worse because it rains in Mobile pretty much every day from about all the time. I was about to try to tell you, I think, December can be dry sometimes, but um, yeah, so I put the sand down and then, so my aviary it's the outdoor part is 15 feet long. So 12 of those are concrete, and they have been since I bought this house. It was like that when I bought it. And it just kind of had this perfect pocket where my aviary happens to fit. And then originally I only had about a 1 foot dirt patch on the end. Um, and that was fine. I wanted a more natural look, so I ended up putting sand all over the concrete. And while the sand starts to get really mucky, the poop gets in there. I had disease issues. And so then I thought, well, I'll put down gravel and that'll drain, and that way everything drains underneath the gravel. Well, not really. It ends up, like you said, it just collects and gets gross. So there was one day, it was actually kind of dumb the way I did it. So I got like a big rubber tote and like a snow shovel type shovel and just shoveled out all that gravel.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't think about when I filled it, it was like 30, 50 pound bags.
Yeah.
So I had this tote that now weighed 1,000 pounds, and it just sat out in front of my aviary for a while before I finally transferred it 5 gallon bucket at a time into other into a place where I could dump it. Um, so yeah, it turns out I think the right answer is just concrete.
Yeah.
Mostly for the health of the birds, the hygiene aspect. You can scrub
Yeah.
it, put down simple green, scrub it, and you're good. My aviary, I do have a 3 foot dirt section, which is sort of a compromise because I do get to still see like the quail take dirt baths and stuff like that. However, every 6 months or in the summer, realistically every couple months, because it gets gross faster, I scrape all that out, 5 gallon buckets at a time, and put in new organic potting soil to keep it more clean. And it's
Yeah.
still not perfect, and I have other things I do to help keep it safe. Um, but the other great thing I've seen people do, if you're like, well, I don't want to do all concrete. I want to see the birds go through the dirt and things like that. There are two ways I've seen people get around having an all concrete aviary, and that's great. Is they'll just go get a bucket of dirt from somewhere that's safe and hasn't been sprayed with pesticides and dump it out.
Hmm.
Bugs, everything, whatever gets in there. and then you can come watch the birds sift through that. Or the other thing I've seen done is people get like a tub that's like 2 foot by a foot or like a couple of them and put them out with dirt in them. So you're still up on the concrete. They can just be dumped out and new dirt can be put in, or you can put mealworms or whatever you want in the dirt for the birds. So you can get some enrichment in that way
Yeah.
and still have a floor that you can clean. And I've helped several people this month. Coccidiosis is the big one, right? It lives in the dirt. You can't really eradicate it without some pretty hard uh, medicines or phoniopatty, and then it's really hard to clean. So at first you don't have problems, you don't have problems, you don't have problems, and about 6 months in, or really into your first rainy season wherever you live, if you get rain, then you start to it rears its ugly head. So I wouldn't
Yeah.
advise dirt. Um, the only time I would say that dirt is acceptable is if you have a huge aviary, and I'm talking
Right.
about you can't throw a football from one end to the other, and you don't have a crazy amount of birds in there. In that case, I would go with dirt because I don't,
Right.
you don't really need to clean it, or you don't really need to clean it very often, right? You can rake it once a year like Tony Arnold, and you're good to
Yeah.
go, or every time you swap birds out or whatever. But as a general rule for a first timer, I would stick with concrete. Or if you don't have a way to, you're not good at concrete, or you don't have a way to get concrete poured, or it's not in your budget, pavers,
Yeah.
same thing. Just get them up tight on each other. You can put mortar in between them or seal in between them, and then same thing. So either one of those, but I would say that over really anything else because it's just so cleanable and easy to keep hygienic, and that's more important than how it looks.
Yeah. I love that. I think there's a lot of options out there. If you're looking at or wanting to build an aviary, reach out to us. We'd be happy to share, anything outside of this video of pros and cons or how we did it. I did post a video of my building process of my
I've done the
recent
same.
aviary, so you can look back at that. And I did post, prices of material and how much material I used and things like that, my drawings, all that, all the above. So reach out, please. We'd be happy to help you out in that aspect. Try and find other people's aviaries. Go look at them. Go see what you like, what you don't like, what would fit in whatever space you have available. Take some of the things that we've noted, like double doors, length over height, things like that really do benefit the birds and keep them safe from predators or from escaping, things like that, keep them healthy and strong. There are a few things that I would say are necessary if you're looking to build a cage, and try to take those into consideration, utilizing whatever space you have available that you're going to put that aviary inside or outside.
Right. The most of the things we talked about are not ifs, they are have to haves. Past that, you can, I mean, I've got, just as an example, like a foot down from the top of the aviary, more at eye height, I've got a second horizontal bar around where I can hook nest boxes so I can still open the lids and look in and see that. You don't have to have that, but
Right.
I found, okay, that's what I want for me. I've got a little ramp for my quails so they can go inside and out, right? You don't have to have that. They can fly, they can not go in the inside portion. There's lots of, you don't have that. That's fine. It doesn't mess you up at all.
Right. Right.
But you've got to have double mesh. You've got to have double doors. Got to have some kind of roof over most of it, especially depending on your climate. And then we just talked about in the climate control episode, so I won't beat the dead horse too hard, but you got to have a plan that works with where you are. And that's the
Right.
best part about building your own cage is you can customize it to your setup. There's Echo's Aviary here on YouTube. She's in the Pacific Northwest where she has really rough winters. So she has like a completely like greenhoused in aviary that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's an incredible aviary,
Yeah.
but she doesn't have open sides because it doesn't make sense where she lives in her climate. Tina Billings, same thing. Really incredible aviaries, totally different from mine. She has like framed photos and like furniture in hers. It's awesome.
Yeah. It's so
But
cool.
she still has the double doors. She has, creature impenetrable walls. There's some things, no matter what you do, you got to do these things. And then
Right.
again, first timers, concrete pavers, something you can clean easily. Um, all right, Chris, I think, we probably will do other episodes on more specific things about building your aviary, but I think we've hit kind of the highlights here. If they wanted to ask you a question about how to build an aviary, where would they find you?
Yeah. PM me on Instagram. BirdNerd4 is usually the platform that I respond to quickest. So reach out to me there. But you can also reach out to me on YouTube or Facebook. Both of those are Bird Nerd. Message me on Messenger through Facebook if needed. I've had quite a few people do that. So I do utilize that or respond to comments here on YouTube. So yeah, those three platforms are the best, easiest ways to get a hold of me. Please do. I'd love to answer your questions. Don't feel embarrassed. No, there's no dumb question ever.
We want to help.
Yeah, I'd rather you ask it than not ask it, and then something happens. So please ask it, and happy to help any way I can. So Jay, how can they get a hold of you, man?
That was a good thing to say, Chris. I don't know if we've ever said that before, if I've said it. Yeah, there's no such thing as a dumb question. Please ask us.
Yeah,
Easiest ways to get me, DM me on Instagram, DM me on Facebook, DM me on Reddit, also on Threads, which sucks. I'm unlikely to see it there. And then obviously we're here on YouTube. If you have a simple or what you think is a simple question, drop down in the comments. We want to help.
yes,
There's a lot of, we'd love to hear about your home build aviaries. I know shout out. I know Aladdin's got some really cool greenhouses. Charles Cole has a
yeah,
really cool indoor flight that's PVC and some great wooden breeding cages that he built. Um, the sky is the limit. One thing I did when I built mine, right, was anytime I saw something cool, I just took a screenshot. So by the time I went to build mine, I had all these cool ideas that I
right,
borrowed.
right.
You're welcome to jump on our Instagrams and borrow ideas from us or our YouTubes. If you got questions, reach out. Go to New Zealand
Yes,
Pets,
please do.
please. We'll put the website below. Use
Yeah,
code BirdBrains for 10% off. Help us out. And I think that's it, right? So that's Aviary Construction 101, probably.
yeah, yes, yep. Please reach out to us. Thank you, guys. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks, y'all. Catch you in the next one.